Welcome back to the High Vibe Life podcast with me, Moira Casaba. Oh my gosh, it's 2026. How did we get here already? I have so many things on my heart, on my mind that I am desperate to share with you. And here is the one that has been just ruminating for literally weeks. So several weeks back, I ran what I called the High Vibe Life Lab. It was really a deep dive into the High Vibe Life formula that I teach in my new morning journal. And it was so interesting to me because when we first opened the group, we had hundreds of people come into this group. I was so excited to be able to teach and coach. And it's like nothing makes me happier than being in that space. And when I had everybody do their introductions, and I'm assuming because of how I kind of marketed the group, it's definitely mindset, morning process, vision, energy, like all the things that light me up, that was going to be what people came in with. I struggle with X, Y, and Z. And when we did the introductions, and again, hundreds of introductions, the large majority of people, just without me asking about their business, stated how they were struggling in this area of their business or this area of sales or that area. And it blew my mind, you guys. It blew my mind because I know I live in a different bubble. I live in a mindset bubble. But the reality is this: 80% of success in your business is your psychology, your mindset. It's not the hidden business strategy that everybody thinks it is, right? Everybody wants to know what's the right funnel, what's the right strategy, what's the right script, what's the right thing to say, what's the right way to post, what's the best social media strategy, what should I be doing on my stories, all of those things. And they think that's the thing that's holding them back from success. Guys, I would argue that it's 95% mindset, aka psychology, that's holding you back. And so I just really want you to sit with that, because think about how much time we spend every day in our work doing the strategy, trying to figure out, all of these things. But what if your story, let's start here. Let's think about story or identity. Those two words in my world are kind of interchangeable, right? We all know our identity might be, how we see ourselves as a leader, how we see our confidence, how we see our influence, our identity. But that's really the story that we have about ourselves. And if we have a story that is, one that lacks confidence, one that lacks belief, one that just doesn't believe that the goal is possible, right? So there's that person. And I give that person the golden strategy, right? The strategy that has helped hundreds of people build $1 million businesses every single time that strategy is given. But I give it to that person that lacks confidence, that lacks belief, that has a story that is limiting them. They are going to take that strategy and really not be able to execute on it at all because of the identity, because of the story, right? And so think about that. Think about maybe in your own life, you struggle with a lot of people say, either I don't have time or I'm really bad at time management. Well, if you have that story that you don't have time, you're not going to have time to put the strategy into place. If you say to yourself, I really struggle with time management, you become your identity, right? So we start to do really bad things with our time and do all the things that don't matter and get lost in, doing the laundry or doing B-level things that really don't move the needle forward. But the person that is rooted in an identity of success, of belief, of being a person that owns their time, they're going to have the strategy and they're going to wake up and they're just going to execute on the strategy, right? Same strategy, completely different result, not because the strategy was different, but because the psychology and the mindset is different. The chokehold on every business is the psychology of the leader. Most people that I work with are solopreneurs, right? They're either the person leading a few people, a handful of people, but mostly they're leading themselves. And so if you can't lead yourself to a better story, a better mindset, then you're going to limit your business. You are going to be the lid of your own success, right? So again, let me go back to thinking about the hours in a day, right? The hours in a day that we spend doing the work, but how many hours in the day have we actually dedicated towards our own personal growth, towards rewiring a new story, rewiring a new identity? And guys, this doesn't take long, right? In the High Vibe Formula, I'm teaching you a process that absolutely works because it's worked for hundreds of people. That takes 10 minutes a day. And so often, again, when I got into this work with this group of hundreds of people, so many people had done some level of this work with me in the past. And their immediate response was, day one or day two, like, I feel totally different. We're going to talk about energy in a second. Like, I'm on fire. I'm so excited. I'm like, they're chasing after their goals. They're taking aligned action because their mindset and their energy shifted that quick. But they're also quick to say, like, I can't believe how easy it is to forget this. And I'm like, guys, we are spending so many hours in the day just trudging that road of work, of hustle, of grind, of comparison, of trying to figure it out, right? And we're not even taking the 10 minutes to rewire a new identity. So here's point 2. Your brain determines what you see as possible, right? This is so much of the work that I do when we talk about rewiring our brain, rewiring our beliefs, rewiring our whole psychology. So think about this. When we talk about rewiring the brain, we're really talking about a part of your brain that's called the Reticular Activating System, or the RAS for short. And when you are wired into a new belief and identity, so we talked about that person with unbelief, with a lack of confidence, with somebody that doesn't believe the goals are possible. But now let's shift to somebody that has wired in, it is possible. It's absolutely going to happen. I believe this is going to happen because I've stacked the proof that it's already happening in my life. It's real living proof that they're putting down on a piece of paper every day, getting rooted in proof in real life that, like, their life isn't some goal vision board out there in the future. It's actually happening now. So they're feeling the reality of that. And so they start to see and filter the world differently, literally from their brain, right? So think about a person that might walk into a conversation that is nervous and unsure of themselves and lacks the confidence, versus somebody that walks in and thinks like, oh my gosh, I have this incredible opportunity for you. It might be a fit for you. It might not be, but let me tell you about it, right? They have this energy. They have this confidence. They see possibility everywhere, right? I can't tell you how many times I've been in a Starbucks line or someplace else where I'm like, I have this good energy and I end up chatting with the person next to me, and that person ends up being some type of connection into my business, into a speaking engagement, into even my friend circle, into my life, right? That person was standing right there next to me, right? Orchestrated by what I believe, a higher purpose, a higher being. But so often we're standing in that Starbucks line with unbelief, with a lack of confidence, with low energy, and it's literally right there next to us, and we don't see it. Our brain doesn't recognize it, right? This is crazy. So this was something that happened the other day, talking about how your brain, let's go down the brain science rabbit hole for a minute. So your reticular activating system is like a filter, right? So every second of every day, and I've taught this a lot, so I apologize if you're hearing it for the 20th time, but every single second of every single day, there's just tens of thousands of bits of information that come into your brain, right? The leaves outside, the light off of that lamp, the texture of the rug, my bracelets up against my wrist, like all of these things that our brain just deletes. It just filters them out because we can't process that much information. So it only grabs on to about 30 to 40 bits of information every single second. So let's go back to the person in the Starbucks line. You may have been completely unaware of that person that might unlock opportunity for you standing right beside you. If you're not open to it, if your reticular activating system isn't scanning for opportunity, belief that it's right there, right? So here's a great example. Just the other day, I was driving down the short little road that goes to my daughter's school. Okay, she is in 10th grade. She has gone to that same school since kindergarten. So we're talking, I don't even know how many years that is, maybe 11, 12 years. I have driven down that road to drop her off and my son, pick them up, driven down the same road every single day, twice a day, if not 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 times a day for volleyball, for basketball, for baseball, for all the things, right? I'm sure I have driven down that road thousands of times. We're driving down the road. All of a sudden, I see the most beautiful oak tree, like stunningly gorgeous. And it takes my breath away. And I immediately am like, oh my gosh, Coco, look at that tree. It's massive. And she's like, wow, Mom. And it must have been, the sunlight coming through it to catch my attention or something. But I instantly thought to myself, I have never seen that tree. I've never seen that tree. In all the years, guys, it's a huge tree, so it's been there the whole time. I've never seen the tree, right? Because my brain deletes things it doesn't need, right? Maybe that morning my brain needed a beautiful tree to see, right? But I was open to it. So that's what I'm talking about when we talk about our brain just deleting things we don't need. And that's exactly what we're doing when we are rooted in an identity and a story and an energy that doesn't serve us. Okay, to wrap up, the third thing, let's talk about action. Action, action, action. This is something too that's been so in my heart and on my mind. And I've just been like obsessing about the thought of this, right? Because we all think we need to do more. When I get into these big coaching groups with hundreds of people, really the question is, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? They're all thinking business, right? What do I need to do in my business? What action, what strategy, what secret code can you give me in my business to unlock my success? And I'm like, guys, it is all about your mindset. It is all about your energy. It is all about your psychology, right? But here's the other hidden ingredient. We do not need to do more. We need to do less. We need to do fewer things with the right energy. Okay. So what I want to encourage you in anything in your life that you can look back and go, gosh, that book that I read, my favorite book, or one of your top 5, right? It changed my life. It changed the way I think, the way I see the world. When you think about those things that were just transformative in your life, or this, maybe it was a YouTube video that just like, gosh, it really rocked you emotionally in a good way, right? Or maybe you went to a personal development seminar that just changed the game for you. What so many people do is then they move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And what do I have to do? What do I have to do? What do I need to do more of? What do I need to learn? How do I need to do this? I want to encourage you to go back to the foundation. Fewer things, deeper, versus many things, surface, right? So I was in a recovery meeting the other day. And again, I was kind of thinking about how really one of the biggest secrets to my success is that I dumb everything down, simplify the heck out of it, and I get really focused on the few things that move the needle. And I do a lot of that, right? I do a lot of the few things versus a lot of many, 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 many things, right? Or I should say a little bit of many things, right? And so I was sitting in this meeting and I was actually sharing about, I can't remember really what the topic was, but I was sharing about how, 20 some years into sobriety, that the principles of the recovery program are just really who I am at this stage in the game. And it's how I operate in my own life. When a problem presents itself, I really see the problem through the lens of those principles. When I'm parenting, I parent with a lot of language of the program. I don't think about it. It's just so wired into who I am. It's how I do everything. And it's such a gift, right? People that are in 12-step programs always say like the whole world could really benefit from just knowing the 12 steps. And as I shared that, and then we were kind of going around the room and everybody else was sharing, and somebody just kind of said, not profoundly or anything. They said, I love that we read the exact same thing every meeting. The exact same thing. Guys, we read 3 things. And we read them in every single meeting that you will ever go to around the entire world. And I sat there and I thought, gosh, I had just shared about how the principles of this program were just entrenched in my being, in my psychology. The only reason that is because we go back again and again and again and again. So I sat there and I thought, wow, I have been in thousands of recovery meetings over 20 some years, thousands. And we talk about the same exact thing. Kind of like when we go to church and we read the same exact book, the Bible, right? We go back to the thing that offers us transformation. And so when I tell you, I go back to the same videos, I go back to the same thought leaders, I go back and I read and I re-listen. Here's another great example. Somewhere along my journey, by the way, I'll link this in the show notes. I have it's just called, this was not a brilliant naming. I just typed this in one day many, many years ago, favorite morning playlist. I really just did it for me because I was saving videos from YouTube that really spoke to me that I wanted to go back to. And so I was creating this playlist for me. I've shared it with tons of people all over the world since then. And I've never changed the name, but I had shared it with somebody and I was working with her and she was struggling again, right? We kind of go from growth to struggle. That's very normal, of course, for all of us. But she was at this struggle point. And I said, gosh, go back to the morning playlist, because that's where I go back to all the time. And she said, oh yeah, no, I've listened to all those. And I was like, I don't understand. And she said, I've listened to all those. And I was like, yeah, I've listened to all of them probably hundreds of times. Like a lot of those videos, I could close my eyes with my AirPods in and recite them word for word, memorized, because they're so entrenched in my mind, in my brain. Robin Sharma talks a lot. You've heard me say this a bunch. My favorite quote of Robin Sharma is, we become our conversations, but he also references kind of quotes or sayings as brain tattoos, like literally tattoo it on your brain. So it becomes part of your belief system, part of your psychology. It's no different than the flip side of that, unfortunately, is when we grow up with, whether it be an abusive parent or an unhealthy messaging, sometimes, a lot of times, those messages unfortunately get tattooed on our brain, right? And we develop limiting beliefs. But the beauty of the brain is that we can shift that. We can change that story. We can change that identity and therefore change every single thing going forward. So I hope this lands in a place of ease for you, that you realize, gosh, I don't need to do more. I don't need to find out the secret business strategy. There isn't something that everybody knows that I don't. I really have to put the emphasis on my mindset, on my psychology, because that is the foundation. That is the first domino. Everything that comes after that depends on that one thing, right? Your mindset. So go back to that. Go back to the books that have transformed you. Go back to the videos that shook you in the best of ways and put them on repeat. Simplify the heck out of your life by focusing on your mindset, putting it on repeat, and going deep on the few things that work instead of surface on the many things that make us burn out. Okay, you guys, I would love to hear back from you on this episode. Shoot me a DM, reach out any way you can. Also, I'm going to soon be doing what we did a few years ago on the podcast, which was a Q&A series, which I'm going to ask you what your questions are for me on my Instagram stories. You're going to shoot them in, and then I'll record an episode to those questions specifically. So be on the lookout for that, and we will see you next week.